Would you like to do a odd, even, high roll?
Pretty sure that I'm going first.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I don't really know. So you're the top seed, so you
Yeah.
go first. Yep, cool, man. No worries.
Emerald, Pearl, Sapphire.
Just put the pearl on the top of the sapphire, on top of the emerald. Thanks.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1. Here we go. Good luck, man.
You too. I keep.
Yeah, I'll keep as well.
Go.
Okay. Yep, pass.
Go.
And pass.
Go.
Tap 2. Go for a Felwar Stone.
I'm managing.
Yep. Your turn. Scallion. I will force spike that.
Wow. Okay. Go.
That's it. Island. Tap 4 for Suchi.
Yep.
Your turn.
Go.
Okay. Maze of Ith.
Mm-hmm.
Just think here. Yeah, okay. I'll cast Transmute Artifact.
Okay.
Sacking Suchi. I'll get a Colossus.
Not sure that's how that works.
Yeah, so this has come up before, Michael.
Yeah.
Since we're playing the old rules and we're playing the cards as they're written, when the Suchi goes to the graveyard, the Suchi generates if it's transmuted, it generates first the 4 from the casting cost, and then of course the Suchi hits the graveyard, so it generates another 4, and that gives the caster of transmute, if it's particularly on Suchi, 8 mana.
So that's just some weird rule that you guys made up? Because like that's not how it works in normal Magic. I'm pretty sure that's not how that works. Like,
so Michael,
you have to have the mana prior to the Suchi's ability goes on the stack, right? Well, so like you don't get the mana until after.
As long as it's in the same phase of play. So this is in Victor. You're in your first main phase, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
So as long as it's in the first phase of play, Michael, mana does not transfer between phases. So as long as he doesn't go to combat phase, he'll still have
Right,
twice.
but
And Michael, just for the record, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the rules post, but we're not using modern rules in this format. We're using,
okay.
We're trying to play the game according to the rules as they were in 1994 when the Dark came out, and it does cause some challenges, and we've tried to document each of the special cases and special notes. We've tried to clarify, each of these situations that have come up. There's actually not that many, but technically speaking, the stack, as we understand it in modern Magic, was released with the 6th edition rules, the big 6th edition rules changes, and so I believe the way Victor is playing this is correct, to the time frame and to the rules at the time, which is what we're trying to achieve. We are not trying to duplicate EC, Atlantic, Swedish, or any of the other rules formats. We are not trying to play modern rules in this format, and we've tried to be very clear and transparent about that.
Okay, so just to clarify, you've made up this rule because you think that's how it worked in 1993 and 94, but that's not how it works in the game of Magic that we play today.
Yeah, modern. Well, we're not making up.
Dude, it's your format. You can make the rules up however you want. If that's the rule, that's the rule. But that's just not how it really works. So,
well, how would it work in your understanding differently if it were 1994 rules and cards as they're written?
So when you sacrifice Suchi, right, his ability goes on the stack. But in order to get the 4 mana, you don't get the 4 mana until after transmute resolves. So you have to come up with the mana prior for anything above what Suchi costs. You have to come up with that mana difference.
Okay,
I'm like 95% sure that's how that works.
So if there were a stack in 1994, you'd be correct. And I'm not trying to be difficult.
I mean, if you've posted that rule and I just didn't read it,
well, we've played
that's your format, right? Like it's in old school with Chaos Orb, it doesn't work the way the rules say. It's
right, which was an errata. So what we've posted is number one.
Mm-hmm.
The rules are as they were in 1994, which this does create some challenges. I'm not saying that this is a perfect dream scenario, because it does create some problems. So number one, the first in last out rule is basically in effect. Technically speaking, the stack doesn't exist in 1994. It's just phases of play as they were. The revised rule book, revised was out, so revised rules were the rules of the day when the Dark was released, according to my understanding of the timing. And so we're not doing this to try to be difficult either. What we're trying to do is create the actual gameplay dynamics of that time. We've talked with many folks who've played at that time. We've run as many of these scenarios as we can. We had about 3 or 4 weeks of testing, and we came up with rules around Mishra's Factory, tapped creatures deal no damage, etc., things like that. And this scenario has come up, and our understanding was, since there is no stack in 1994, that was released with 6th edition, then the phases of play and the manas transferring between phases were the rules that would be applicable here. And our understanding was, in this scenario, it's a very unique one for Suchi, right? And if there were a stack, you'd be correct, Michael. And if we were playing modern rules, you'd be correct. But in this case, 1994 rules, revised rule set, no stack, first in, last out is the basic rule.
But that doesn't change the fact that, right, you have Transmute Artifact, which is a spell that's resolving, right? And this ability, it's resolving while this is resolving. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
It's within the same phase of play. So yes,
right.
So the Suchi is sacrificed is right to the
right.
the transmute, right?
Right.
So the first thing, first in, last out would be the rule that we would apply here, right?
Okay.
So the casting cost for transmute is sacrificing. That's part of the effect of
Yeah, I get that.
So
The
I
casting
believe
cost
you
is
would
not what
first,
I'm.
you'd
It's the
first
mana
get,
from the Suchi, right?
you'd first
Like
get the Suchi would hit the graveyard, so you'd first get the mana from the Suchi dying based on the Suchi's effect, and then you'd get the 4 mana from the transmute. And as long as you don't switch phases to your combat phase, then you would have all 8 mana.
Okay. I mean, if yeah, but again, like Suchi doesn't produce the mana until after transmute resolves. Now,
Sure.
if you guys
And I
want
think
to
that's right.
errata,
Suchi
if you guys want to errata how Suchi works in your format, that's fine. But like in Magic, that's not how that works. So, you know,
in modern rule sets, you're correct.
right. So I mean, I don't even know how it works back then. When you're saying first in, first out,
No,
what's
first
still,
in, last out.
yeah, but what still like that still doesn't like even if you're applying like that kind of rule, I mean that is essentially what a stack is, right? First in,
Well,
last
that's
out.
the thing, right? That's why they created the term the stack, because they
Right.
had already kind of, my understanding, and I was playing in 95, not in 94, but I've
Right.
talked with people that were playing in 94. We've talked about many of these types of scenarios to try and get the ruling right for this format in particular. And you're right. Although the stack didn't exist, the concept of first in, last out is where the term the stack came from. Because basically, it's think of the effects of the spells or the triggers that are stacking on top of each other, and then you resolve
Correct.
them in reverse order of whatever's on top last played is going to resolve first, and then the original things are the last to be resolved. In this case, I think the key things to remember are there technically is no stack in this format. The revised rule sets are at play. The phases determine where mana transfers. Mana doesn't transfer between phases: first main phase, attack phase, or second main phase, etc. So my understanding is the way Victor's playing this is correct.
Right. Well, again, nothing that you've said, right, dictates when Suchi produces the mana, right? So you have an effect, transmute artifact, that is in the middle of resolving, right? So transmute artifact sacrifice the Suchi, right? It does look at the casting cost, the converted mana cost of the Suchi, right? And you have to come up with the mana to resolve. But Suchi doesn't produce. Like the question is, when does Suchi produce the mana? Under normal rule sets,
she would produce the mana when it hits the graveyard, and then
okay,
and then you'd have 4 mana
so
from it hitting the graveyard that you would have to use before your attack phase. Otherwise,
right.
it would cause mana burn.
So you're right. So you're saying that abilities resolve during the resolution of other spells.
Well,
which is just not how like Magic works, but like if that's how you want it to work in your format,
what we're trying to do, we're trying to have these.
You see what I'm saying, though, man.
Yeah,
right?
I do. And if modern Magic rules were applicable here, then obviously you're absolutely correct. What we're trying to do is play this as it would have been played in '94, exactly the way the cards are written and exactly the way the rules were then. That's kind of our ambition.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what's got like the whole reason they did the 6th edition rule set is because it was all confusing,
right?
And didn't actually work the way it was supposed to work.
You're right. And there's about 12 or 13 scenarios like this that we've identified. But other than that, there's not that many other major problems. But Falling Star is a challenge. And there's a few other cards.
Falling Star is for sure a challenge, especially with webcam games.
Yeah. So the other thing, Michael, is this is the way we've been doing the admins, the moderators, a lot of folks that were doing playtesting. The way that Victor's playing this is the way that we've all been playing it because that's the way we
yeah. Look,
understand it.
like that. That's fine. I mean, again, this is your format. You can make whatever rules you want, but I did not know them, so going. So that like that's just the difference. So if that's how it works, that's how it works.
Yeah, and we can. We knew there would be some bumps in the road for this first format, and we really tried to identify all these different unique situations. Michael, we put in a lot of hours to try and uncover these. This was one that came up after we already had started the tournament, but we're please understand our intentions are not malicious, right? We're really trying to create the game feel and the gameplay and the mechanics of the time, and that's all we're trying to do.
Sure. Okay. So you have a Colossus, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, well,
It
I'll
still
pay
costs mana, right?
Yeah, I'll pay the one
Yeah.
extra.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I shuffled up well and truly. So there you go.
What's ones?
There you go.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, I have a Colossus. So first main. Yep. Yeah, nothing else. I'll pass.
Pass.
Yep, sure. So I guess I should probably double check then if I can target an attacking creature after combat damage with Maze of Ith.
I mean, that's how it would work in modern rules, but I don't know how it works in Fantasyland.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Maze of Ith effectively, Maze of Ith is one of the cards we did do the special notes on in the rules section, Victor. Effectively, Maze of Ith doesn't do anything different than it did at the time. It's effectively played the same, and it still has the same mechanics. The wording still applies the same. So,
but the way combat works is totally different in the rule.
right. So what applies here is with regards to tapped creatures. So the ruling of the day in '94 was you can have a creature be tapped in the middle of combat, but any creature that is tapped, at damage does deal no damage within combat. So
the question is, can he maze his guy after the attack after he deals damage with his?
yes, and it would deal no damage.
So you can't maze your guy after it's dealt damage, is what you're saying. That's what you're saying, Chad, right?
Let me just double check this real quick and make sure I'm quoting the rule correctly. 1 second.
Okay. Oh, I get messed up on one. You get messed up on one. I guess that's even, right?
Yeah.
Like what the? We're in weird magic fairy tale land.
Well, we are. That is part of the.
Dude, it's cool. I'm just making, just trying
to. But you're right. It's like the ambition to create the feeling of the gameplay of the time is the price we have to pay for that is we have
figuring it
out. We have to confront these very specific, unique situations, and once we get them all documented, like. Transmute is so powerful, right? And in this particular scenario, Transmute, Suchi, Colossus, it's a very unique, powerful combo.
Right.
And we just need to get a flat, definitive ruling documented on it. And there'll be maybe a few others. And then I think we'll have most of them documented. So let me just go back to the ruling and I'll paste this in the chat. This is in the announcements, by the way. If you go to the announcements section, on the group and look for the rules post. It has all of these rules. It says, constructed format rules for the Four Horsemen is the name of the announcement. And here is the special note that we have documented on all the cards. On Maze of Ith, here's Maze of Ith. Maze of Ith will be played precisely how it was in 1994. We're not using the same exact modern rules of today. We're not using the Oracle text. And Maze of Ith may have been played slightly different at this time. Maze of Ith will read exactly as it reads on the card when it was originally printed, no modern errata. Maze of Ith is a land with no mana ability that can be tapped to target any attacking creature, and this effect then untaps the target creature and prevents the combat damage the creature would have otherwise dealt or be dealt. You can activate Maze of Ith's ability targeting an attacking creature you control or one your opponent controls during the combat damage step or at the end of combat step. Maze of Ith can be utilized to untap a creature after combat damage at the end of the combat step, where combat damage has already been dealt, and the creature would then be untapped in this case.
So it does work how it normally works.
Yes, that's what we came to. The conclusion we came to was Maze of Ith is played the same way it is today.
Okay, so yeah, that's ridiculous.
So
that's
technically speaking, Maze of Ith was not played differently during 94.
Well, no, because once damage resolved in 94, like that was it. Right?
Okay, sorry. Then you're right. It is played differently. Excuse me.
But I mean, it like if you put in your rules, right? Like I'm just saying, like if you actually put in your post that that the maze will untap the creature. Is that what you read that right? Like,
yeah, I was reading it off. Yes, that's right.
Then that's how you're gonna have. That's how we'll have to play it. Like,
yeah, that's right.
It sucks for me, but like that's not how it worked back then. So
right, and this is the double-edged blade of what we're aspiring to do. There are going to be some situations, and Michael, we may have to address these. We're trying not to do errata, and we're trying not to do significant errata. Like with Falling Star, we obviously have to have some extra rules around it, but we're trying wherever possible to just play it as it was then. And if you want to check the rules link, I dropped it in the chat window.
Yeah, I'm looking that up right now.
Okay.
But if you specifically said maze can be utilized to untap a creature after combat damage at the end of the combat step where the combat has already been dealt, the creature would be untapped in this case. So
Yes.
yeah, so that's like that is modern. That is adding modern functionality to Maze of Ith.
Yeah, and this was so we have a rules committee as well. I'm not a dictator of these rules as an individual, right. And what we did was we voted on this, and this was Rob Hackney's recommendation, and the rest of the rules committee agreed. So that is the ruling as it is now.
That's fine.
It sounds like, Michael, that you've got a very good understanding of rules, and if you would like to volunteer to be on the rules committee, we would value your input. And we did tell everyone after tournament 1 we are going to be making banned, restricted, and pointed card assignments and possibly rules updates. So if you'd like to volunteer to help us, we would appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, I don't mind helping out.
Okay. All right. Sorry for the 2 deep dive rule things, but you know what? This was also a part of the 94 feeling. I remember arguing for long periods of time.
Well, I don't. It's just like you have a set of rules in your head of like what Magic is, and then you're like, hey, oh, wait a minute, like, okay.
Right. So what we need to do is we need to encounter these scenarios, and we need to document them. And if we use the North Star mission of, hey, how would this have worked back in 94? I think we can, as a group, we can document all these, and there won't be that many more, and get it all, very clarified, and then everyone will understand, and it'll be, I think, mostly resolved.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna get demolished is what's going to happen right now.
I'm just trying to find the actual combat steps because somebody posted a PDF. I found my revised book.
Yes. So the other thing we posted, that's right, Victor. There is in the rules section that I just shared, I have added the link up at the top. It says first in, last out timing. and there's a link to the revised rulebook, and we also posted the revised rulebook by itself in the announcements. So there are sections on combat examples and things like that. So we have a text version, an actual text version of the revised rulebook that was shared.
Yeah, I have that up right now.
Yeah.
Can you see?
Helpful as a reference.
Is there actual combat steps in that rulebook? I can't find it.
Yeah, kinda.
Does it just end with damage?
Yeah. So there's where it says the attack damage. It says the next step is to assign damage. No spells or effects of any kind may be played while damage is being assigned. An untapped blocked attacker does an amount of damage equal to its power rating to your opponent. A blocked attacker does its damage to the defender blocking it. If the defender is no longer present, it does not deal lethal damage at all.
Yeah,
A defending creature deals damage to attacker if it's blocked.
So I think the important note there that Michael just read off was you can't do things as instants during the damage step, right?
Right. Yeah, you can't.
So, for example, if you want to animate your Mishra's Factory, you have to do so and block before the damage step.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes.
Yeah, the only thing I can see is that after the damage is assigned, there's an opportunity to prevent the damage or redirect it. So you can cast a spell after the damage is assigned. So I guess that's a window.
Right. And so that exists for things like reverse polarity, which could reverse artifact damage. It would exist for things like preservation.
Right. So like what this is basically saying here is what I was saying, right? If after damage has been assigned, right, you could use your maze to untap the dude. But in doing so, Maze's ability would resolve, right? And say, hey, we're preventing all the damage.
That actually makes sense to me.
Right.
And that's probably the closest thing we're going to find in the rulebook, I think.
Right.
That is the combat section, the attack section.
Yeah, and one of the challenges we have, Michael, is, when you've got folks that are very skilled at modern rules, like Rob is a big Canadian tournament player. He makes top 3, top 4. He's placed, top places in a lot of the.
I know Rob.
Yeah, you've got folks that are very, very knowledgeable on modern rules, and then we start to try and apply that knowledge to going back in time with the way things used to be. It gets very difficult because your brain, we know what we know and we do what we know best, and your brain wants to apply the modern mechanics naturally, right?
Right. Well, I mean, like it's about adding functionality to Maze of Ith, right? Like,
yeah, we don't want to do that. We want to play it exactly as it should be played, and we want to play it as the revised rulebook would apply.
Right.
So in that case, this was something that we voted on by the rules committee. Like I said, I did not choose this by myself.
Right.
This was the best understanding that our rules committee could come up with, and we did make this change before the tournament started. So in this case, I would say, do you believe that based on the rule books and reading that we just read and our current documented understanding of Maze of Ith that we have it wrong?
You do. You absolutely have it wrong. I think we both agree on that.
Yeah, I agree with Michael on that one. Look, I don't want to go against the current rules that have been written up or anything, but I'm happy to play with it as though Maze of Ith will prevent that damage. It looks to me as though there's a window there to do something after damage.
Yes.
But it actually said prevent or redirect.
Right. Right. So I mean,
it tends to indicate there is no end phase of the combat, which is the modern thing, right?
Yeah, that's right. There's no end phase of combat. Just like there's, there is a discard phase, which is documented, but there's no quote cleanup at the end. And I think, the reason the rules committee, they were trying to make sure Maze of Ith was not overpowered, but that it was played, as close as possible to how it was. It seems to me if it allows the creature to have all the advantage and none of the disadvantage, Maze suddenly becomes even more powerful than it already is.
Right. That's it, so the rule that you guys implemented, while it is in line with the modern rule, it adds functionality to Maze of Ith that it didn't have.
It didn't have in
during that
94,
period.
and it gives it this add. Not only does it add that functionality, but it's an unbelievably powerful functionality.
Yeah. Right. So,
Okay.
so Victor, like, it's up to you. I don't like you built your deck with this interaction in mind. You
Let me
also
ask you this, Victor. Have you run into this exact scenario with your other opponents, and how have you played it up until this point in the tournament?
I've only managed to cast Colossus once. That was hard cast, and
Yeah.
it got mana drained. So,
Yeah. So this is the first time you've
Then they
actually
got
played
mana burn,
first time
so-
this has happened. Okay.
So so that technically speaking, you have not been able to attack with Colossus and then maze it yet in the tournament anyway.
no, I have not.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay. Well,
Yeah. Look, I'm happy to go with what the rule book says and what Michael and I's interpretation of it is. Because
sure.
to me, there isn't a window. There is a window to activate it, but then the damage is prevented.
Right.
That's the way I'm reading it. So
Yep,
I'm happy to
okay.
run with that.
All right.
Okay.
Shall we continue?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go. All right. So
Sorry, we're deep diving into rules.
No,
from
this is
like 2
fine. You're
decades
playing
ago.
amazingly powerful cards. You're getting them out early, and you're both being able to draw and play these. So these could have come up later in the game, but your decks are fast, which
Yeah.
means they're well constructed.
all right. So I will move through combat. I'm not going to attack.
Okay.
Second main phase, I'll cast Serendipity Freak. Sorry, I have a cat trying to play as well.
I will mana drain that.
Mana drain. Yep. Then I'll play out a second maze. And I'll pass. Yep.
Your turn.
Okay. What's up? Okay. Island. And I'll pass.
Pass.
Okay. I'll pass.
Pass.
Island. Pass.
Pass.
Island. I'll pass.
Try.
Just going. Yeah, I'll mana drain that.
Okay. Your turn.
Okay. Oh, I have 6 mana. So I'll use 2, so this will leave me with 4 mana for an Efreet.
Okay.
And then use 6 mana for my own Triskelion.
Okay.
And I'll pass.
Pass.
Okay. Upkeep. I'll take 1 damage. Draw. Yeah, I'll go to combat. Attack with the Ifrit. Three, 4, 5, 6. Go for a Tetravis.
Yep.
And I'll pass.
Pass.
Keep 18. Combat. Swing in with the flyers. And I'll pass. Yeah, pass.
Yeah, give me a second.
No, sorry.
That's game.
Okay.
So, Michael, Mirror Universe may be another one of those cards we might want to, do a special note on regarding the rules. I was curious if you were going to use your Mirror Universe, before your upkeep.
I was going to mana burn myself,
Yes,
but I only had enough damage to do 3 direct to him.
I saw that.
He had a trike,
Right.
So there was no way for me to.
The trike is what did you? So your strategy would have been.
I needed to resolve. I needed to resolve a trike, or I needed to deal with his trike.
Right. So Victor, if you had not been able to cast that trike, I think Michael would have been able to mana burn himself.
Correct.
And switch life. Now, this is another rule that is different from the old rules. The way Mirror Universe was played was you could back in the day you could mana burn yourself and then switch life.
Yeah, you essentially kill yourself and then.
Yeah, you didn't die until end of combat, right?
Right, until the end of your combat step. So that allowed you to do wacky things like go below 0 or go to 0, and as long as you got back to 1, for example, Spirit Link at that time, you could take lethal damage, but Spirit Link would give it back to you before the end of combat. So you could survive that negative or that 0 life hit as long as you recovered before the end of combat.
Yeah, like there's no way to make myself go to 0 without a City of Brass.
Yeah, so that's right. So City of Brass is one of the mechanisms to get there. I really think, Michael, if Victor was very fortunate to get that Triskelion out, plus he had the mana drain, so he could play it without tapping out. So that was very fortuitous for Victor to be able to do that because he had basically that one card to thwart the mirror, which is really kind of wild.
I needed to draw a City of Brass and deal with his trike. Is really how that had to happen. but like because like you can City of Brass damage yourself in. Wait a minute. So maybe I played that wrong.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. I was wondering if you did play it wrong or right. I wasn't sure. I didn't want to make a comment until after the match.
Hold on. Let me read.
Yeah,
Mirror, because I think mana does burn you between.
yeah. So if you don't use the mana in the
I think you could do
in
it
the
in your
phase,
upkeep.
like let's say you went from first, your main phase to combat phase, and you hadn't used your mana, it does burn you. And
Yeah.
City of Brass does double damage, right? Because
Yeah.
if you changed phases after tapping the city, you would take a damage for the mana burn plus the damage from the city tapping.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could pull that off, because it looked to me as an observer, it might be possible for you to still win there.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out like how that works. Like I think like actually I think I messed up. Like
Yeah,
if
I
I
think your
activated
concession was maybe a little bit just ever so slightly. Like I think you really thought there was no way out, but I think there might have been.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe there was a way, because like even if he trikes me during my upkeep, right? Like how do you guys have it written with your you guys
So
didn't
we don't have a rules posted a special note on Mirror Universe yet.
Yeah.
I think we're going to probably need to have the rules committee author one.
Right.
But if we just apply the fourth edition rules about damage and life, and we look at the face of the cards and play them as they're written, then we should be able to arrive at the logical conclusion here.
Right.
What do you think, Victor?
I didn't count how many lands Michael had. So you're going to burn yourself in your end step?
I mean, I could have gotten my life total down a bunch of times, but I had way more than 10 mana.
Yeah,
but I'm
just to summarize the thinking. I was thinking this. I'm sure Michael was thinking this. Your Triskelion was the fulcrum here. If you didn't have the Triskelion, Michael could get down to as much as 3 life on his turn at the end of your turn, and then if you didn't have the Triskelion, you wouldn't be able to ping him for 3 and kill him, right? And he could, on his upkeep, also activate additional mana burn and then switch life with you. He could go down to, I believe, 1, or he could go down to 0, right, Michael? If you had a way to gain life after that.
Well, I think how it works is I can go to 1 at the end of his turn. So how I think like the deck used to play Mirror Universe,
right?
You would go down to 1 and assume your opponent had like no way to deal instant damage,
right? And then you'd have,
then you had a City of Brass on your upkeep during your upkeep. The city would deal your damage, so you'd be at 0, and then you'd switch the life.
And then you'd switch. Okay, so you would get
the mana doesn't burn until the end of the upkeep, right?
Mana doesn't burn until the end of the upkeep. So you need City of Brass in order to make that happen.
Right.
I mean, I actually do have that interaction in here, but
yeah, and I figured you did. Now, other ways to do it would be simply, get your opponent down to a low level of life and then chain lightning them or attack with a Mishra's Factory. You didn't have to do it during the upkeep. It could still swing the entire game as long as you had a way to deal 1 or 2 damage or whatever during your turn.
Right.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Because I just thought it would have been basically killing yourself in your end step and then.
Yeah. So, Michael, you would have needed a City of Brass in order to execute the plan, I believe.
Correct.
Or you would have needed a way to get down,
or a bolt or something to hit me for 3 direct.
Chain lightning would do it. I know you're playing red.
A
shatter, not a shatter. Sorry, a detonate. In fact, would also do it. But you didn't have a way to get rid of the Triskelion. And I think now that we've discussed it, I think you played it correctly, because the Triskelion no Triskelion and no City of Brass were the two problems for you.
Yes. Yep.
I don't know about you guys, but I've been playing now for about 5 weeks this format, trying to learn, all the different ins and outs. And one of the things I've noticed is I've never played so many games of Magic that are so close. I mean, most of my games have been literally down to the wire, where it's 2 to 3 or 1 to 2 or 4 to 5, and something crazy happens on your turn, and then you think you're going to win, and then something crazy happens on the opponent's turn.
I'm quite sure after these discussions that my earlier rounds, there must have been some mistakes somewhere in there that nobody picked up on.
Yeah, and that is part of the challenge of the new format, and we hopefully, that's why I called this the quote Wild Wild West of the Four Horsemen, right? Not that anything goes, but we know that there are going to be a lot of these types of errors made, and we want to just try to uncover them, identify them, uncover them, document them, and then get a ruling on it so that in tournament number 2, it's just clear for everyone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd definitely recommend that change to